Let's talk about vaping with 17-year-old Georgia Smith, who you saw in Callum's film, who used to smoke but now vapes. Professor John Britton, Director for the UK Centre for Tobacco and Alcohol Studies from the University of Nottingham, and Conservative MP Glyn Davis, who's from the All-Party Parliamentary Group for Vaping. Welcome, all of you. Thank you for coming on the programme. Professor John Britton, you argue in favour of vaping as an alternative to smoking. So how worried are you then about how easy it is for those underage to get their hands on vaping products?
It is worrying, and the practice is clearly illegal, and it's something that we want to clamp down on if possible. And the same applies to purchases of conventional cigarettes by young people. We need to stop that. But for adults who smoke, electronic cigarettes are a way out of an addiction, which is going to take a year of life off them for every 4 years that they smoke.
Glyn Davis, how do you react to the fact that there are sellers selling to under 18s?
Well, they're breaking the law, and I think we have to look at ways in trying to stop that. Clearly, there's a cost involved in enforcement, but it's breaking the law. And
but you heard the trading standards guys say we don't have enough resources.
Well, yes, and I think that's a question for government. There's an awful lot of laws to enforce, and there's got to be a cost involved in all the enforcement. But I do think there's a big public health issue in terms of young people entering it. It's an exit. Vaping's an exit
for adults
activity, not an entry activity. And I just think we've got to take that seriously. And
how easy was it for you to get hold of this stuff?
Oh, it was very, very easy. Like, I just went into a shop and said I forgot my ID, knowing full well I didn't have one. And they was just like, yeah, bring it next time. And I think it was because the guy who sold it to me was similar in age. So I think about 3 years older than me or something. So he kind of knew what it was like. But yeah, it was just super easy.
And do you switch from vaping to smoking, or how does it work for you?
See, I used to smoke and then I switched to vaping because apparently it was better for me. And then I ended up in hospital because of it. And then ever since then, I've been vaping, smoking, and I've not really found a way to stop yet.
Right. But if sellers weren't selling to you, you wouldn't be able to get hold of the vaping products or the cigarettes.
That's true, but some people, especially teenagers, they just have to put on a bit of makeup, and like especially teenage girls, it's so easier for teenage girls to get it because they've just got to put a bit of makeup on, look all pretty, go to the shop, and the men will sell it to them.
Do you take any responsibility for asking for this stuff when you're underage?
To be honest, sometimes, yeah, of course I do. But then at the end of the day, I feel like I need it. And it all depends. Like, if they told me no, I probably wouldn't have had the addiction in the first place. But because they gave it to me from such a young age, without asking my ID to start with, I've just learnt to let it go.
You're smiling at that, why?
Well, I'm smiling because Georgia was a smoker before she was a vapor, and the move from smoking to vaping is a very rational one to take. So my question would be, how did you manage to access the cigarettes so easily before you were well under 18? The move to vaping for someone who's already a smoker is a no-brainer, but it's also a bad idea for anybody who doesn't already use nicotine to start vaping.
Do you think we should ban flavoured e-cigarettes, Glyn Davis, as they're looking to do in the US?
yeah, I think there's need for research. I mean, what we don't want is vaping to become something that's particularly attractive and very saleable to young people. Well, I think the flavouring is designed to do that. I just think there's a bit of I'm suspicious to be on the same side as Donald Trump on this argument, but I think he's making a really good point that the flavouring is really designed to make it more marketable, probably to young people, and as an entry into vaping. I think government's going to have to look at whether or not we can stop that.
And you would back that?
I think I would, yeah.
And you think the flavoured e-cigarettes are targeted at young people?
100%. They've got popcorn flavour, jelly flavour, strawberry shortcake. They've just got a lot of flavours. And my friend Sydney, who's on the film as well, said that if it weren't for the flavours, she would have never vaped because she was never a smoker before she started vaping.
Do you think they should be banned?
No, I don't. Flavours are really important for smokers trying to quit smoking, moving on to vaping, because many report that they find the nicotine vapour quite irritant without a flavour. I think the issues raised by this case are really important, but in the UK, unlike the US, we do not have an epidemic of vaping in young people, and our smoking rates in young people are falling quickly. So I think the problem is under control. It needs to be watched really carefully, and these examples need to be enforced.
King's College looked at online surveys from over 12,000 16 to 19-year-olds. 38% of those said that vaping adverts made e-cigarettes seem appealing. 36% said they believed non-smokers were being purposefully targeted.
Vaping advertising is pretty tightly controlled in the UK, and again, a bit like underage selling. If the advertising is coming through, it needs to be closed down.
Right. But that goes to the flavour point, that popcorn flavour, that's not for adults who are giving up fags, is it? Come on.
About a quarter to a third of adults who switch to vaping use those kinds of flavours. Fruit flavours are the most popular.
So most don't.
Most use tobacco or menthol.
Yeah.
But I would accept that we don't need the thousands of flavours that are on the market at the moment. But I think we do need some flavours to help adults quit.
Go on, Glyn Davis, you wanted to come in there.
Well, it's a simple issue. If flavours are being used to target new entrants and young people, then I think government's got to make certain there's enough proper research in place to make certain that we know that. And if there is any kind of proof of that, then we have to act on it. If there isn't, then it's rather pointless legislation.
Ben on Facebook says, I switched from tobacco to vaping, and I've now stopped after realising for me that vaping is much more addictive than tobacco. Jason says, I went from smoking to vaping. It helped me give up. Thomas tweets this, teenagers are teenagers. It's hardly the end of the world if they vape. What do you say to that? Is it the end of the world if teenagers vape?
Well, obviously, if it causes damage to some teenagers, then obviously it's not the end of the world, but it's very serious. But it's
illegal for a reason, isn't it?
Yeah. It's not great, and we don't want to, and we want to try to discourage it as far as we can.
Graham says tobacco products were and still are being sold to children, and vape products were always going to follow suit. Thank you, all of you. Thanks for coming on the programme. Thank you. Really appreciate it.